If you've ever wondered what hell might look like in broad daylight, welcome to Oakland. One moment, you're sipping oat milk lattes under sunlit murals. The next, you're staring at tents, melting into sidewalks, shopping carts turned into beds, and eyes that haven't seen sleep in days. This city was once a blueprint for diversity and working-class pride. Now it's a case study in what happens when a system quietly folds. Even the police don't go where the cracks run deepest.
I don't like the stress it's bringing to my neighbors and friends and family here.
On Romekind, we uncover the spaces between headlines, where silence screams the loudest. This isn't just about Oakland, it's a mirror, and maybe it's reflecting where the rest of us are headed. Number 1. Two cities in one. You're cruising over the Bay Bridge, and in a blink, the vibe shifts. On one side, gleaming towers, electric trees, and people swiping on Tinder at Coachella-style coffee shops. On the other, busted RVs, trash on sidewalks, and weary eyes that seem frozen in time. Welcome to Oakland. Technically one city, but playing double roles. On one side, you've got the cutting edge of tech, Silicon Valley, AI talk, blockchain buzz, even whispers of the metaverse. On the other, streets lined with tents and cardboard shelters. It's like stepping from a Star Trek set directly into a black and white movie. Why do these two worlds exist under the same sky? Let's talk numbers. The January 2024 point-in-time count clocked about 5,490 people experiencing homelessness in Oakland. That's a 9% increase since 2022. And here's the kicker. Around 67% of them aren't in shelters. They're out there in the elements, living in cars, tents, RVs. These aren't just statistics floated in reports. They're human stories etched on sidewalks. Why is this split so obvious? Because one community races forward into the future, while the other is stuck in survival mode. Not by choice, by circumstance. A sudden illness, a lost job, a medical bill, it can send anyone tumbling over the edge. With average rent over $2,200 a month for a one-bedroom, surviving isn't a challenge. It's a system glitch. Here's a question for you. When you think Oakland, do you imagine both realities, or just the Instagram-bish one? Do you think two cities under one name can ever truly understand each other? Or is this normalizing a split that should shock us? Let's stick together, dig deeper, and watch what unfolds next. Number 2. The unmapped dead zones. They don't show up in glossy brochures or influencer reels. No 5-star ratings, no walking tours, just silence. And everyone around here knows exactly what that silence means. East 12th Street, Wood Street. Not places you visit, places you avoid. Ask any local, and they'll nod quietly, the way people do when talking about something both dangerous and sad. Google still calls them neighborhoods, but on the ground, it's more like a map of neglect. On East 12th, nearly 100 people live between piles of scrap and the shadows of freeway overpasses. No toilets, no trash collection, just tarps, old mattresses, and the occasional burning barrel for heat. It smells like wet cardboard and tired souls. City bulldozers come every few months, knock it all down. But by next week, the camp is back, like weeds in cracked concrete. Wood Street is another level. Over 200 residents, once packed into a wasteland of broken RVs and makeshift huts under towering bridges. Fires weren't a risk. They were part of life. A propane leak here, an electrical spark there, and suddenly the sky glowed orange. The city intervened after media attention. But no permanent housing followed, just relocation. Again, Mosswood Park, once a family spot, now quietly hosts dozens of unhoused. Behind benches, under trees, near playgrounds. On weekends, you might see a birthday party in one corner and a man sleeping in a blanket cocoon in another. Emergency cleanups come and go, but the people stay, reshuffled like chairs on a sinking ship. And yet, it's not just about tents or trash. It's about invisibility. A city can survive poverty, but it can't survive apathy. When fear becomes a familiar flavor, when homelessness crisis becomes a fixture, what's left to fight for? Even police avoid these places after dark. So, who's left to protect them? Who's left to care? Here, survival is the only currency, and fear the only law still enforced. Number 3. When leadership fades. It's like driving without a steering wheel. Now imagine that wheel controls your entire city. That's Oakland, drifting without direction, stalled by silence. Public safety, fading. Trust, evaporating. In early 2024, the city faces a $265 million deficit, with hiring freezes in essential services. Meanwhile, violent crime saw a spike of over 20% in 2023 before dipping slightly. Yet, the fear remains. So does the sense that no one is in charge. Surveys show more than 64% of Oakland workers limit time at the office, not because of remote jobs, but real danger. People whisper, "Do I go to work or do I stay alive?" When that's the question, you already know something's broken. It's not just policy, it's emotional decay. Dead zones aren't marked on maps. They're the places we stop caring, where sidewalks rot, sirens echo, and people live like no one's watching. Oakland's police department mirrors this drift. After decades of federal oversight, scandals, staff shortages, and overtime chaos, it's clear. The force is stretched and trust is thin. New chiefs arrive, reforms are promised, but the community only sees more press conferences, not change. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about asking the one question that echoes down every block. Who's running this place? If there's no answer, the vacuum fills with fear and fatigue. Imagine a city where leadership is missing and silence answers your 911 call. That's not fiction. That's Oakland. Yeah, we know. It sounds like a plot twist, not a city report, but it's real. Type "lost control" if you felt that chill. Romekind isn't here to shock, just to show what's already there. Number 4. A neighborhood in hell. Hell isn't always flames and devils. Sometimes it's plywood cracking at dawn and the sound of your life being bulldozed again. In West Oakland, there's a block where morning doesn't start with birdsong. It starts with the low hum of bulldozers and flashing orange vests. Denise, a former preschool assistant in her early 60s, doesn't flinch anymore. She's learned the rhythm. Her shelter, made from tarps, pallets, and quiet hope, is temporary by design. When the city comes, she grabs her worn duffel bag, her photo album, and waits for the inevitable. Then she begins again. This isn't chaos, it's rhythm. A cruel kind of schedule. The 9 to 5 of holding on. There's no announcement, just action. Every sidewalk in this neighborhood in hell bears layers of quiet resistance. Torn sleeping bags, cardboard messages half faded by the rain. A pair of flip-flops sitting neatly at the edge of a tent, like someone still believes in order. But when destruction is expected, tragedy loses its edge. Evictions aren't shocking, they're routine. Thursdays feel like Mondays, and everyone knows what follows. Sweep, silence, rebuild. Local shops, once the heartbeats of this block, coffee shops, taquerias, corner bookstores, now sealed up. Plywood instead of panes. Some still carry handwritten notes like "back soon," taped from 2 summers ago. But they never came back. Poverty doesn't just empty pockets, it empties sidewalks. This is the underside of the homelessness crisis. It's not just tents, it's tension. It's a neighbor brushing their teeth behind a dumpster, a grandma boiling water from a fire hydrant to make instant oats, a community where even calling 911 feels pointless. And still, there's warmth. A woman sharing socks, a man fixing a flat tire on a wheelchair, someone humming "Ain't No Sunshine" on a harmonica with 2 missing notes. In hell, people still find music. So now, the real question: what would you do if this was your block? Would you ignore it, judge it, or would you show up with an open heart and maybe a sandwich? Let's talk in the comments, because every city has corners like this, and pretending they don't exist, that's the real tragedy. Number 5. The slide into homelessness. They once had keys, now they have nothing. That's the brutal truth behind how fast someone can fall off the map in Oakland. These aren't people chasing misfortune. They're regular folks hit by a perfect storm. Lost jobs, medical bills, rent that keeps climbing while incomes stall. According to January 2024 PIT data, roughly 5,490 people in Oakland lacked permanent homes, a 9% jump from 2 years before, and around 67% of them lived unsheltered in tents or cars. They didn't choose this life. A sudden illness, a job layoff, a hospital bill, one strike, and they're spiraling. Let's talk dollars. The average rent for a 1-bedroom in Oakland is hovering around $2,073 per month, more than 27% above the national average. Even juggling 2 or 3 jobs, basic survival is a stretch. No stable address, forget job interviews or even opening a bank account. No showers, no mail, no hygiene, no hope. People find themselves stuck in a no-win trap. Worse, the system isn't lifting a finger to catch them. Shelters are full, vouchers are short-term fixes, and creaking public support offers no safety net. The result? Once you fall, you're sliding, and nobody's waiting at the bottom. Nobody chooses this life, you might remember reading or hearing. And it's true, but when rent is sky high, jobs disappear, and the system looks the other way. Survival becomes a full-time job in itself. Now ask yourself, how close are you to that edge? What do you think? Have you seen someone one misstep away from losing everything? Does rent feel that scary where you are? If there's no intervention, the slide continues. But if we push for policies that stabilize housing, expand shelter, fix the job address loop, we could stop the fall. Just asking, would you step in? Quick pause. If this part hit you, even just a little, smash that like button and drop a comment. Ever seen someone lose it all overnight? Or maybe you're one paycheck away yourself? Tell me. And if you're new here, welcome to Roam Kind. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, because the next stop, it only gets deeper. Number 6. A generation with no name. Some kids grow up with bedtime stories. Others grow up next to sirens, in tents, under bridges. That's Oakland, where childhood slips through cracks before it ever begins. Kids with no school, no ID, no medical care. Just shadows in the larger homelessness crisis. Picture this. Uniforms donated 3 times over. shoes held by duct tape, backpacks full of anxiety. While other kids scroll TikTok, they're wondering where they'll sleep tonight. Their dreams are on pause, maybe forever. This isn't a phase, it's a pattern. Stolen tents, fires, evictions, parents trying to rebuild life from concrete. Some of these kids haven't seen a real home in years. What does that do to a child? It leaves scars, emotional, social, invisible, but lasting. Federal studies say unstable housing leads to poor school performance and chronic illness. But here, stability isn't rare. It's almost fictional. You hear whispers. They're not in the system. They've been erased from it. They grow up in survival mode, suspicious, tired. No bedtime hugs, no stuffed animals, just flashing blue lights and sleepless nights. That's not growing up. That's just aging too soon. We call them the long trauma generation. No foundation, no protection, and eventually, no trust. These kids aren't just victims. They're survivors of poverty dressed in silence. If we define the next generation by what they lose, what kind of world are we creating? What kind of city are they inheriting? Yet hope lingers. Volunteers hand out meals, books, toothbrushes, small kindnesses, but real ones, a light in the chaos. Maybe that's where change begins. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, how many children are closing their eyes without a roof, without a name, without even being noticed? They deserve more than just shelter. They deserve to be seen. Number 7. When the system breaks down. Cities aren't just concrete and cafes. They're systems. When one part cracks, schools, clinics, transit, it all begins to shake. And in Oakland, the shaking hasn't stopped. It's turned into a quiet, daily collapse. The kind you don't notice until the water's already waist-deep. Public safety feels more like a slogan than a promise. Since the early 2000s, total crime in Oakland has jumped by 86%. Even more alarming, violent crime has surged over 150%, and property crime by 72%. That's not a headline, it's a symptom of burnout, of neglected infrastructure, of a system once built to protect now doing damage by absence. You can see it in schools. When families flee, school funding drops, teachers scramble. Kids don't just lose algebra, they lose the sense that the world has space for them. You hear it in the clinics. Appointments are booked out for months. Burned-out nurses leave faster than the city can hire. Meanwhile, the homelessness crisis grows louder as tents pop up faster than support services. And if you think this only affects the most vulnerable, think again. A Bay Area Council survey in June 2025 revealed that 72% of Oakland consumers have slashed their local spending due to safety fears. 64% of employees said fear impacts their ability to work in person. These aren't just opinions, they're everyday decisions shaping a city's future. Even the middle class isn't immune. People with degrees, savings, 2 jobs, their one cracked tooth or missed paycheck away from spiraling. The price of rent, the cost of food, the stress of choosing which bill to pay late. When did surviving become a full-time job? What's the plan? Patch the leak? Or wait until the whole ship sinks? If Oakland is a sinking ship, then even the top deck will soon get wet. You read it. You felt it. Now rate it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how broken do you think the system is? Drop your number below and let's compare chaos. Number 8. Band-Aid solutions. You don't treat a broken leg with a sticker, but that's how we handle homelessness crisis. Right away, The comparison hits hard, and it's closer to truth than you think. Oakland's strategy feels like playing whack-a-mole. One moment, they offer hotel vouchers and temporary shelters. Another, they sweep encampments without a long-term plan. Just last month, the city bought a hotel on Mandela Parkway with $7 million in state funds, $25 million in grants, and $4.6 million from city coffers, aiming to rehouse up to 150 people temporarily. Sounds great until you realize when the lease ends, so does the shelter. Fighting poverty with quick fixes, shelter beds, motel rooms, occasional cleanups, feels like applying a Band-Aid on an open wound. The 2022 Pitt point-in-time count showed that 66% of Oakland's 5,000-plus unhoused residents live outside shelters. More beds? Sure. But more short-term fixes? Definitely yes. Take Wood Street. Tiny cabins and RV parking launched in 2021 and 2023. Capacity could hold about 100, yet only 51 or so were housed, and many didn't leave for permanent homes. Then, they shut it down. 70 people were displaced. One non-profit director called it horrible, because it was. City cleans up. City moves tents. City hopes people move on. But where to? That's the missing chapter. Surveys confirm this is not by chance. Many people don't want congregate shelters. 26% say lack of privacy. 24% cite safety. 22% mention bugs. 20% complain it's too crowded. Band-Aids don't solve these issues. They just cover them up. And people stay unhoused by choice or system. When cleanups become weekly rituals, when shelters open only to close, when sweeps cause more chaos, is this policy or PR? And what happens when the Band-Aid falls off? Crisis management isn't policy. Routine failure isn't strategy. It's surrender. When will Oakland look up and ask the big questions? Or will it stay in denial until there's nothing left to sweep? What do you think? Are Band-Aids enough? Number 9. The Wall of Indifference. The opposite of compassion isn't hate. It's nothing. A shrug. A glance that slides past. And in cities like Oakland, that nothing has grown layer by layer into something concrete. The wall of indifference. This wall doesn't make noise. It doesn't scream for attention. It builds quietly, one unspoken thought at a time. Not my block. Not my job. Not my problem. Until one day, it's not just a wall. It's a worldview. It's easy to tell when a place is falling apart, but harder to notice when people stop caring. That's what makes this wall dangerous. It's invisible, but it separates. You can walk by a person in crisis and feel nothing, not because you're cruel, but because you're tired. Tired of seeing it, of not knowing what to do, of wondering if anyone's doing anything at all. So instead, we learn to look away. We reduce people to warnings, not stories. Be careful in that area. Don't walk past the tents after dark. No one asks who's inside those tents or what they used to dream about. And when media joins in, the wall thickens. Instead of real names, we get data dumps. Over 5,400 homeless in Oakland. But who were they before that? A mom? A nurse? A veteran? We rarely find out. That's how the homelessness crisis becomes wallpaper. Not shocking, just part of the landscape. And when suffering blends into scenery, we all lose something. Every time someone scrolls past a story, walks a different route, or says, "Well, that's just how it is," another brick gets added. And now, that wall isn't just between us and them. It's around all of us. You can't fix what you don't feel. And indifference? It numbs more than pain. It numbs possibility. What would it take for you to care again? Would it help to hear someone's real story? To meet someone who fell just once and wasn't caught? Walls can't cry, but people can. If this hit you, don't leave silent. Type just one brick if you think change starts small. Or comment seen and heard, because silence helps no one. Number 10. Sparks of hope. Still burn. Between despair and dawn, there's always a spark. That's the real story unfolding in Oakland, where amidst the constant churn of tents and trash, compassion still finds its way. Not flashy policy, but real humans bringing change. Non-profits like Homeless Action Center and Compassion in Oakland aren't just preaching, they're doing. Since 2015, homelessness in Alameda County more than doubled, yet these teams doubled down on support. Volunteers trained for the point-in-time count have surged by nearly 68%, turning observers into advocates. They walk encampments, count every individual, and then rally aid, food, legal help, housing connections. On top of that, local heroes started tiny home villages. In Alameda, the model is working. Roughly 50% of residents transition to permanent housing from tiny homes, versus under 15% in dorm shelters. That's a crack of brightness in a homelessness crisis that too often feels endless. Here's irony for you. Trash cleanups that city agencies ghost, volunteers fill the void. In one sweep, they removed 23 tons of waste, and the city didn't even show. But those cleanups brought dignity back to those streets, reminding us, when systems fail, people still step up. If not now, when? If not you, who? Support networks like Ella Baker Center connect resources, green-collar jobs, and community power to break cycles. That's the blueprint of change. Modest acts layering into movement. What gives you hope? Have you seen tiny homes, volunteer cleanups, or community kitchens flip the script in your city? Share in the comments. Let's amplify those sparks. Because even if policies lag, small acts can rebuild what was broken. And that spark, it's only the beginning. Maybe it's not about fixing Oakland. Maybe it's about understanding what let it fray in the first place. No villains here, just tired people, broken routines, and a dream still dangling above a bus stop. This isn't the end of a story. It's just one chapter in a much bigger book, and we're all somewhere in the pages. So I'll leave you with this. What part are you playing? Observer, participant, or quiet narrator? Comment below. Let's stay curious.